Recently, I posted a couple of short reels about the Jeffrey Epstein FBI documents release. First of all, I wish to apologize because I was wrong about some of my analysis. In the public release of the original 3.5 million documents, there was a great deal of material that I was unaware of and that I was unable to piece together.
Pablo, the honest, crazy, straight.
Let me explain. I recorded the reel one evening and scheduled it for a release the next day. That same day of the premiere, I started hearing reports of an additional 3 million or so documents that only certain people had access to, and that access was very limited. It turns out that in those disclosures, there were some truly horrendous revelations. I considered pulling my piece, but I decided to let it go and follow the story to see how things developed. I basically said that I didn't believe there would be any information that would change anyone's perception of the situation. And even though I didn't specifically say there would be no revelation of a grand international ring, that was part of what I was implying. Now I believe I may have been wrong. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, there are sections of this video that are bleeped out. Some consider the omitted language to be inappropriate for this platform. If you want to listen to the unedited version, follow a link that I'll leave in the description. Let me start by pointing out some of the things which I still believe to be true. I don't think there will be anything new that will incriminate or embarrass Donald Trump. I also think that nothing will damage the Clintons too terribly. There could be revelations about some role Epstein might have had regarding the Clinton Foundation, but I honestly don't know what that might lead to or if it's even true. As I pointed out in my last reel, Epstein was a kind of fixer and had contacts everywhere. As far as the contents of some of the new revelations are concerned, they are as bizarre as they are disturbing. Let's back up a moment. In 2016, there was an unbelievable conspiracy theory propagated by QAnon types on Reddit and 4chan. For those who don't know, 4chan is a kind of Twitter-like platform, but with absolutely no filter. The wildest conspiracy theories can be found there, so when I used the word unbelievable, I meant it in the literal sense. Anyway, the accusation had to do with a pizzeria in Washington, D.C. It was alleged that high-ranking Democrats, including Hillary Clinton, were running a trafficking operation out of the basement of the Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria in Washington. I mean, as much as I didn't like Hillary Clinton, I wasn't ever willing to entertain the possibility that there was anything to the story. For whatever it's worth, I also don't believe it had any effect on the 2016 election either. Anyway, that's the story, and it became known as the Pizzagate story. Back to the Epstein file release. There are more than 900 odd-sounding references to pizza in the 3 million documents. I say they sound odd because it sounds more like some kind of code instead of an allusion to food. One particularly strange-sounding message was from Epstein's urologist, Dr. Harry Fish, where he said, "Let's go for pizza and grape soda again. No one can understand." The bizarre pairing of pizza and grape soda appears hundreds of times in the files, and not only from Dr. Fish. No determination of what it may mean has been established, but some doubt that people at that level of society were actually talking about food. Is it likely that Jeffrey Epstein really liked pizza and grape soda that much? Around the world, hundreds of people have resigned positions as a result of the release of the latest tranche of documents. Understand that some of these, and I would guess most of these, have nothing to do with Epstein was involved in a number of shadowy dealings as varied as espionage, money laundering, and even international sanction evasion. The resignations have come from the highest levels in financial circles, academia, and governmental sectors, among others. Even some European royal families has been affected, as in the case of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. You know, the Andrew formerly known as Prince. The most serious allegations are about Jeffrey Epstein was known to be involved in that kind of activity. There are enough peculiar and seemingly cryptic messages to and from Epstein that a more serious and in-depth investigation is warranted. So I have to ask, where is our FBI, and how could they say there is nothing more to pursue? I said before that there is nothing in the new documents that affects me personally, and that is still true. The people who circulate in those corridors of wealth and power are completely alien to my personal experience. But there are things which are important to society as a whole. Obviously, if there really is an international ring, that itself is worthy of our highest concern. Some of the speculation even mentions possible in whatever was going on. That is a hypothesis that I am leery to even go into. But still, that's not the whole problem. There is another big issue of the open secret, meaning that there are people in positions of authority who, for reasons unknown to the public, are unable or unwilling to confront the people involved. It seems like a tacit permission slip to allow certain powerful individuals to engage in immoral and illegal activities. In 2017, Ronan Farrow wanted to report a story about the Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. The story reported allegations of by 13 women against Weinstein in what could be described as a scandal. Farrow gave the story to NBC, but they refused to run it despite plenty of on-the-record testimony. The story was finally published in Vanity Fair magazine, but questions remain as to why NBC wouldn't run the story. Weinstein's reputation was so widely known that it was common fodder for comedians of late-night television. Why was NBC afraid to go against the Hollywood power brokers? Were they intentionally covering for him? Many of the same observations can be made about the Jeffrey Epstein story. News outlets such as ABC and Vanity Fair magazine have been accused of suppressing stories about Epstein for one reason or another. Some people have claimed that Epstein escaped more serious punishment from his 2008 trial in Florida for because the prosecutor, Alexandra Acosta, was told that Epstein was an intelligence asset. In other words, a spy. For the record, Acosta denies this ever happened. The point is that early in the reporting of the story, I didn't really care about it all that much. It was a horrible story about horrible people far removed from my life. The Biden administration wouldn't release any of the information, which kind of made it look like a cover-up, but I still didn't care that much. It seemed like it was about par for the course for the Biden White House. Then the Trump FBI wouldn't release the files, even though they had promised to do so. That's when I started to get interested. What could be in there that we weren't allowed to see, and why? Back then, before the release of the new information, I had no idea of the potential scope of the more serious allegations. So who did know about it all, and why was it covered up? Our own FBI had many of the documents since they raided Epstein's properties in New York and the Virgin Islands in 2019. Clearly, it would seem that there was a conspiracy of silence that hid the likely extent of the allegations. In a reference to the aforementioned Pizzagate scandal and to the 900 appearances of the word pizza in the files, comedian Bill Maher said, "I can't believe I'm saying this, but where does QAnon go for the apology? Because for years we've been laughing at them for thinking the elites were running this giant high-level and now that we've seen 3.5 million pages of actual evidence, it's a little more than smoke. I'm not saying they're in a pizza parlor, but you know what? You weren't totally wrong about that one, guys. The files are out, and it's grosser than even the conspiracy theorists imagined." The whole thing makes me wonder if the scandal could have been the inspiration for Stanley Kubrick's 1999 film, Eyes Wide Shut. Are there groups of elites having parties in secret settings where intruders could be killed for invading? Is this where the deep state goes to blow off steam? Epstein certainly fits that profile of a deep state operative. Go watch my video about the modern Cartesian crisis if you want to know more about the deep state concept. I mean, what other so-called wild conspiracy theories are also true? Should I be watching more Alex Jones for my hard news? Anyway, thanks for watching. I shall try to be more careful in the future. I'll also continue to follow the story, and if there's anything else I feel the need to tell you about, well, you know that I will. This is Pablo el Molinero.